Delta Airlines is kicking off earnings season with a big start. Check this out. The stock is up at the time of recording, up over 12% on the day, trading at $57 per share. I'm going to talk a little bit about my position on Delta in just a moment. Delta stock soars after earnings beat reinstates guidance. The CEO says the tax bill and trade deals are removing uncertainty. But the stock market itself is a little bit softer here today because we are still getting some tariff headlines hitting the wire. Trump makes a new threat of 50% tariffs on Brazil as his trade letter tally reaches 22. And there's definitely some politics involved here because Trump really does not like the current leadership in Brazil. And so he seems to be taking a strong stance on it, as he has also taken a strong stance on BRICS nations in general. Stock market's down a little bit further here, down 0.45%. But to be fair, this market has really, for the most part, shrugged off the concerns around tariffs. That being said, we are seeing tech take a little bit of a tumble here this morning. Here's Meta down 1%. You have Nvidia here flat on the day, and Amazon continuing to suffer just a little bit from what was a lackluster Prime Day. Shares of Amazon fell by nearly 2% on Tuesday as reports emerged that early sales for its flagship shopping event, Prime Day, were down 14% on a yearly basis. However, I made a point in one of my recent videos here that I actually think that some of this could have been due to pull forward purchasing that may have occurred in anticipation of tariffs by consumers. Nowadays, the news cycle is so 24/7 that people are well aware that tariffs could change prices for goods and services that they use every day. And I think a lot of the sales that maybe happened earlier could have been a result of people buying ahead of proposed, possible tariffs. And so maybe there was a little bit of a lackluster Prime Day for that reason. In my personal view, any sort of significant pullback on Amazon is a buy for my personal approach. So if we get a move down to 208, if we get a move to 212, 208, somewhere in this region, I think that Amazon for me personally would be an opportunity to add more shares to my existing position. So with Delta earnings beating their earnings per share estimates, I did want to talk a little bit about my personal position in the stock. So I own shares of Delta Airlines, but I've gotten myself into a little bit of a predicament because, of course, I shorted calls around the 55 level ahead of the earnings report. Now, obviously, had I known the earnings were going to be so good and the guidance would be so prosperous, then I definitely wouldn't have shorted these calls. That being said, I bought shares of Delta at a much lower price. You can see I'm up 53% on my holdings of Delta Airlines. And what this position sort of says is I sold the $55 calls, and this is a covered call position, meaning I own shares. So I'm making profit on the shares I own, but I'm losing money on the calls that I shorted. And so the net result is I am essentially not going to make any more profit past the 55 level than had I not had the calls on. So that's kind of how a covered call works. And to help illustrate this, here's what a covered call position essentially looks like. So if I only had owned the shares, then obviously I don't cap my upside. But by shorting a call, I get paid a premium for shorting that call or selling that call to someone else. However, if the stock price goes up tremendously, then I cap my winnings at a certain level. And because these calls are out until August 8th of this year, which is about a month away, I have some time for this stock to either do one of two things. Either the stock continues to rip, which very well could be the case with such strong earnings and guidance, in which case I would get called away from my shares for a profit of around $10,398 if I closed out right now. However, if the stock price drops in the coming days and weeks, essentially this call could actually turn back into a profitable position. And either ways, I collect the premium that I collected for shorting the call in the first place. Now, options can be confusing at first, but if you'd like to trade them alongside myself and others, check them out inside of our Discord community. The information for the VIP group will be linked in the description below. Tesla is staging a little bit of a bounce back here. This is another very large position for me in my portfolio. And I've mentioned in recent videos that if we do get a larger push on Tesla, my primary goal with this will be to actually put on my covered call position again. So I want to sell covered calls once more, but specifically I've been eyeing the 365 to 375 strike price area to short calls at. And I only really think the premium is worth it if we get a bounce back first in the stock. I've been mapping this out, and if I take that trade, it will be shared inside of the group. Here's a look at some of my other positions currently. I've got the Delta Airlines covered call position. I also have a covered call position on my American Express position. And let's now also talk about Lulu, which is a stock that I shorted puts on. Let's take a look at the Lulu trade, ticker symbol LULU. Lululemon, of course, a very popular household name in terms of, yoga pants are the classic thing that they're known for, but it's, of course, an athleisure wear or product, if you will, and has been absolutely getting killed here recently. However, Lululemon is a stock that I think has longer term potential to turn around. And so what I did is I actually shorted a put at a 250 strike price. Now I shorted this put when it dropped big in its last earnings report. I thought that the stock was oversold, and clearly I was wrong because the stock has continued to push lower. However, at this point, what I essentially have done is I collected a premium for selling the put. And now if I get assigned to this put, then I will own shares at $250 per share minus the premium that I collected. And for selling this put, I collected a premium of $6.25. What that means is that my actual assignment level is going to be $6.25 lower than where I sold the put. That is my premium coming into play. So essentially, I will get approximately an entry around $6.25 lower, so $2.40 something, right? So it's a way for me to buy shares at a cheaper price and collect premium even if they don't go down. I like selling cash secured puts because if there's a stock that I like that's just not pulling back, I can still make profit from the position even if the trade or the stock doesn't trade down to my entry level. Another stock that I'm watching close for a pullback on is Google, as I have been for a couple weeks now, looking for a retracement into the low 170s or 160s for a possible opportunity to add more shares to my existing position. Longer term, I'd like to make Google one of my largest positions in the portfolio. Here's an update on my Robinhood position. I did end up rolling out my calls to August 15th. And of course, Robinhood doing what it does, it's continued to go higher. And now the covered call position or the calls that I've sold are already down $558. This has been a stock that I've had an ongoing struggle with, but I do still really like the stock, but I do think it is also a bit stretched here. The stock has moved pretty much in a single direction. And from the lows here, guys, this is a move of a 200+% move. I mean, that is an insane rally. It's a great company and I love it for the long term, but I do think it is a stretched stock as well. And so what I've chosen to do, as I've mentioned in previous videos and am frustratingly still doing, I've sold a covered call position. So I've shorted calls against the 600 shares that I own of Robinhood. So if the stock moves lower in the next few weeks, I'll cash in on those calls that I shorted and still be holding on to the shares. If the stock rallies from here, my plan will actually be to get called away from the shares, or if I can, collect more premium by rolling those calls out again. Another stock looking really good here is Uber. I'm up a good bit on this position and do not have any sort of covered calls currently at this time. I've not chosen to sell calls, and it's not a stock that I really want to sell calls on at this time because I don't necessarily think Uber is massively overvalued, and I actually think that the stock has room to run. So buying this one on a pullback would be of interest to me as well. And I'm keeping an eye on Nvidia because it is one of my biggest positions in terms of stocks. It's the second biggest stock in my portfolio just behind Tesla. This stock has led the rally back, and it seems that finally Nvidia might actually be back for real this time. It's been a while since we've had a consistent or follow-through breakout in Nvidia. We really topped out in the 150 level last year, but now confidently trading above that 150 level on the weekly chart. I do think we are a bit overextended. Take a look at your RSI here, getting stretched, but not a stock that I want to try and cap my winnings on either. This is a stock that I think is going to continue to stay top of their game for years to come. I know there's all this speculation about other companies making their own chips, and I do think that can be a threat to the business model here, but for the here and now, there's so much demand for Nvidia chips that I don't see a reason not to keep it in my portfolio, at least for now. And again, I'm sitting on a really nice winner due to the ad that I made in April, buying the stock at this low point. I owned the stock before April, but I added more shares, bringing my cost basis down, and my overall position is 500 shares, which for me is a very full position and not one that I'm looking to add any more to at this time. In fact, even though Nvidia is a very expensive stock. It's actually been interesting to watch over the years as this stock PE ratio wise has actually been falling while the stock price has been rising. This is part of the reason I feel okay holding the stock, even though it has a very high valuation. As of Q2 when it reported its earnings. Now, it has risen since then and the PE ratio has gone up since then. The PE ratio as of its Q2 earnings was around a 43.59. And I bought the stock earlier in the year, February, March, and April. So around a 40 PE ratio for what I believe is one of the best stocks. Well, not just me. I mean, look at the valuation of this company. One of the best stocks in the market at this time. To me, I want to hold tight to my Nvidia shares, and I think it is something that I can confidently hold for years to come, unless something drastic changes. So keep an eye on when it comes to PE ratios. The way I like to read this is I like to look at historical basis for the specific stock that you're looking at. Specifically, Nvidia has had a falling PE ratio, and relative to its own history, it's not super expensive. Now, PE ratio of 43 is expensive, but relative to its own history, it's not so bad. Another one that I love for this is Google. Look at Google's PE ratio, which has been coming down here in recent years, which I believe produces a better risk-to-reward profile for the stock. If you want to explore our full set of data and tools, check out the stock box linked in the description down below, and make sure to use the promo code YTVIP for 40% off. And if you made it to the very end of this video, I've got something cool to tell you. The stock box is under heavy development right now. We're about to make this thing into a very awesome tool set for stock traders and investors. And if you don't have a copy, we're doing a really special discount at this time. You can currently get 45% off the tool right now for a limited time. We're doing a summer sale on our software products here at A1 Trading. If you want to explore the tool and get access to all of this financial data, technical screener data, sentiment data, macro screeners, and much more, you can explore the full list of features on our website, a1trading.com/stockbox, and use the first link in the description down below to chat with a support team member who can get you this 45% off discount. Thanks for watching.